continuity's hard to come by in this era of college basketball, but Fran McCaffrey and the Iowa Hawkeyes have a ton of guys back, and they brought in two interesting pieces as well from the mid-major level. Christian here with Nick, and we have Eliot Clough from Iowa rivals, right? Iowa rivals.
Yep.
Iowa rivals.
Hawkeye Beacon.
Hawkeye Beacon, and it's an exciting team, right? We know it's a Fran McCaffrey team. This team's going to score the basketball. They missed the tournament for the first time in a few years last year, so. Owen Freeman entering year 2, how excited is the program for this team? And is the expectation is always to get back to the tournament, right?
Oh, yeah. Lots of high expectations this year for Iowa basketball, at least in the fan base. And, of course, you talk to the staff and the players, and they have all the high expectations, too. I think there was a preseason poll or, somebody put something out predicting Iowa to be, 17th in the Big Ten. And folks around, yeah, I know. Folks, and I hope I'm not making that up. I'm pretty sure I saw that on our board somewhere. But expectations are high for the Hawkeyes this year. You mentioned Owen Freeman, Peyton Sandford back rather than going to the NBA. Josh Dix, expectations are that he takes a leap going into this year. You bring in much-needed athleticism in Chris Taggio and Seydou Traore. Cooper Koch, who's a legacy recruit and was a top 100 recruit, I believe, for us at Rivals. If not, he was definitely in the Rivals 150, a 4-star hooper, 3-level scorer, and expecting big things from Drew Thelwell and Brock Harding in the backcourt as well. So, yeah, expectations are high for the Hawkeyes this season. And, I mentioned that athleticism in Traore and Taggio, and, man, did they need it, especially – after losing Tony Perkins to Missouri. I think Josh Dix is kind of underrated in terms of his athleticism, but bringing in those two guys one from Manhattan to transfer in Traore and Taggio from NBA Academy Latin America, huge upgrades in terms of the athleticism, and that's an improvement defensively, and that's something that in itself, and that's something that we heard about from camp this summer too, and in media availabilities, is there's been more of an emphasis on defense, which is kind of earth-shattering for a Fran McCaffrey team. But lots of high hopes and some pretty high expectations going into this season this year too.
For sure, and I love Iowa. I just want to put that out there this year. I think they're going to be phenomenal. Nowhere near 17th in the Big Ten. I can assure you of that. Just to kind of go off what you said, though, I will say the past 2 seasons defensively, there's been a big drop-off. 168th and 157th last 2 seasons of Ken Palm defensively efficiency. And, the biggest thing that I think needs to happen just to turn that around is versatility. And like you just mentioned, they got that in Traore. They got into some other places. So, yeah, I just want to talk about what do you think Fran's going to be doing differently? Do you think them speeding it up, because they were 19th, the fastest he's ever played in tempo last season? Did that play a role in the defense, also taking a step back, or, just talk to me about that?
That had to be part of it too. The other thing in talking about personnel and the changes going from last year to this year is Ben Krikke was such a big part of the rotation last season. Just not a defender, right? He was coming in from
Valparaiso. Shoot those middies, though.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Valparaiso, where he led the MVC in scoring, and that's what he had to do at Valpo. And to bring him in, a guy who's big, not necessarily athletic, not necessarily explosive, and to expect the defense to be a part of his game, it just that wasn't fair from the jump. And that was something that I said when they brought him in. It's like, you're bringing him in to score and maybe facilitate a little bit at that big spot. And flipping into this year, you're going to have Traore, you're going to have Taggio in that 4 spot, but you're also going to be expecting more from Laji Dembele. So that's a big piece as well. 4-star, now he's going to be a sophomore this year. Owen Freeman has put on some significant weight too. That's going to help him in terms of shoring up and being strong in the post. He's also not going to have to face Zach Edey twice this year, so that's going to be a positive. And additionally, the amount of youth that was playing last year, you're not going to be having as many fouls, right? Like Owen Freeman, that's just an IQ thing. That's a thing about that weight too, which is really important. He can hold his own. He's not going to be swatting near as much. And that's important. And I mentioned Dembele, and that's an upgrade athleticism-wise too, especially over Krikke. So lots of things. I still think the pace is going to be it's gonna be a high tempo team, right? Like that's just what's gonna happen at Iowa under Fran. But if anything, I've talked to former players, I've talked to current players, I've talked to members of the staff. There's just more of an emphasis on defense, and when you go from just offense, score as your philosophy for so long, and just make that philosophical change, you have to expect some sort of differences, right? So it's personnel and then emphasis on different types of philosophies and the way they're going to play basketball this season.
So what's interesting to me about that is, like, top 20 offense 6 straight years, as I said, and like that is the way he recruits. Like those are the guys he wants to bring in, and like he's had guys like Luka Garza, like the Murrays, even like Wieskamp, Peter Jock, like so many really, really good players offensively that it's like, to me, as someone trying to comprehend how a team can be, so different on either end, because there's only a few teams each year that are good, that are like, bad defensively and really good offensively, or really good defensively and bad offensively, that make it work. And I was one of those teams that, they didn't fully get there last year, but they were still like a solid team. So I guess what I'm wondering is, like, you don't have that, like, not that Sanford can't get drafted, or that Freeman can eventually get there. You don't have that NBA guy like you've had with the Murray, Garza. Like, you don't have that caliber of player, but like this is still a really good offensive team. As you know, you've got the shooting, and you talk about these sophomore leaps and some of these guys bringing in, like, the balance in the defense. It does seem like it's going to be there more this year. So kind of a more philosophical question, but like, why now does it finally show up? Like, hey, maybe we should kind of care about defense, or like not just rely on outscoring people, because I know that's what they do so well, but why does it have to be one or the other? And it seems like maybe the whole emphasis this year is let's not try to make it one or the other anymore.
I think it's a couple things. I think it's personnel. That was an emphasis on who they went out and got, right? Like Drew Thelwell, I think, is an underrated athlete too, and he's coming from Morehead State, where like small schools, you have to play good defense, right? If you're going to be competing in the tournament. And truthfully, I think there's a lot of apathy in the fan base. I think they're like, oh, we're not going to go any further than the round of 32. And, I don't know that Fran is like, oh, gosh, fans are pissed. We got to change things, But I think he's aware of the fact that they've only gotten so far with so much talent. And now they have that talent kind of pooled back, whereas they didn't have it fully last year. They could have made a tournament run. They got hot towards the end of the season, but didn't quite get there. But they've bumped up that level of talent to where they can compete in the Big Ten. Maybe not, be top team in the Big Ten, but compete, top 5, top 7 around there. And I think he and the staff see it as an opportunity to finally reach that Sweet 16, something that they haven't done under him, and that they should have done with some really, really good teams that they had. And so I think it's a combination of a few things. They've got some new faces on staff. They've got some, newer faces, guys that have been around for a little while, but he's starting to rely on coaches like Tristan Spurlock, who spent some time at UCF and who has been crushing on the recruiting trail. All these guys that are coming on visits. I mean, like, I don't know if you guys pay attention too much to recruiting. Mozzie Mosley, he's a top 50 recruit in the country, plays out in California. He's coming on an official visit this weekend. That doesn't happen without a guy like Tristan Spurlock. So he's making an impact on the way they're doing things. And he's got a guy in Matt Gatens who played for him at Iowa and is one of the best players to maybe not be in that echelon of NBA guys, but he was kind of the guy over that time frame with Fran. So, I don't know that I could necessarily pinpoint one thing. I think Fran recognizes, if anything, to revert back to what I've been mentioning, it's personnel. It's just different this time around. Level of athlete, level of ability to score with guys like Josh and Peyton. It's just a lot more balanced. Whereas like with those NBA teams, it was Luka, it was Joe, and then it was Keegan, and then it was Chris. And now things are a little bit more balanced, and you kind of have to even things out, if that makes sense.
Totally. Yeah, I actually like the balance. I like the depth. At the end of the day, it is going to be Owen Freeman and Peyton Sanford being the 1-2 punch. So I have 2 questions to go off that. What do you think Sanford's going to average this season? And where would you rank Owen Freeman out of the bigs in the Big Ten?
Both really good questions. Peyton is the guy. He is the straw that stirs the drink, if you will. And I think part of that is recognizing that I think part of that in his understanding of leadership is recognizing when to defer. So maybe he's not going to score to the same degree that some people think this year, just because of that, that level of understanding the balance of talent on this team. Because Josh Dix is going to have games, Owen Freeman's going to have games. I mean, Seydu might have games, right? Like we don't really fully know what he's going to be yet. So 16.4 points per game last year. I'd imagine it's going to be close to that. I maybe a little bit higher, maybe closer to 18. Maybe I'm probably not going to go up to 20 for Peyton, just because of that level of balance in the Big Ten. But when you're looking at Freeman, there's a couple things there. Edey's gone. The big, you're going to have to remind me what his name was. Big from Rutgers, the transfer to Alabama. Yeah, he's gone. So there's a serious opportunity for him to go from being that Big Ten co-freshman of the year, should have been the just him, should have just been him in my opinion. He won the Big Ten freshman of the week however many times, but there's a serious opportunity for him to be top 3 center in the Big Ten. I mean, he was a 3-star for us, and to tell you the truth, that's because he committed earlier than a lot of the other guys. That's just kind of how things work in the industry. He should have been a 4-star. Like, what are we doing? And we saw that last year. The thing that truly will elevate him to that next level, on top of gaining that weight, on top of being a little more stable, closer to the basket, is that ability to shoot the rock. Because what I was told by a source with the team is he's probably going to be shooting 2, 3, 4 times a game this season. And if he can make that consistent, that's what makes him into. Yeah.
Okay.
Middies, threes. He's working on his way out. Now, I haven't seen it in the practices that we've been able to go out and see. We don't get a ton of time, but that's what I've heard behind the scenes. So if he can put that together, that's what takes him to that next echelon of like, oh, he can kind of do it all. And now they're trusting him to put the ball on the floor and take the ball up the court, get going and stuff like that too. So Freeman's Fran's next project. I've been talking to a lot of kids who have been on officials, Simon Walker, Winters Grady, some of these big names, Chase Thompson, who I've future casted to Iowa. I think Thompson's going to be a Hawkeye, which that's premium content. So there you go, guys.
Subscribe.
Yeah. What Fran does when he has priority targets, official visits on visits, is he sits down and he watches film and he says, I see Luka Garza in you. I see Joe Wieskamp in you. This is how we're going to use you. And I just think that Freeman was the most recent project where he's really bought into that, and it's really in motion now. Like, of course, he showed up to camp last year in June. Things started, but you have to get acclimated to the game. He didn't start right away, and now things are really in motion. He worked with the Garzas a little bit this offseason. So if there's anybody that I look at on this team and say, man, he could take a jump, it's probably Owen Freeman.
Yeah, I'd love to talk more about Owen. What I appreciated about him last year is, in a league like the Big Ten, as a freshman big man, to have his level of skill and poise on the block was very, very impressive. He reminds me a bit of Ethan Happ from Wisconsin, as just a guy who came in as a freshman and just, Ethan Happ wasn't stepping out and shooting it like that, but it's just like on the block, just smooth, just a bag of tricks down there, poised, and defensively, a lot of tough matchups. But like you mentioned, Cliff's gone, Zach Edey being gone is like a big deal. Like that damages your psyche, and like those are 2 games where you're just like not playing, and those are tough. But I think Freeman showed a lot of, whether it's just hustle or just like defensively, I think he's got some good instincts. Like I understand no one is going to grade well analytically defensively on a team like Iowa last year, but like just from my eyes, like I like what he does defensively considering his more athletic limitations and everything. But man, if he's stepping out and shooting a bit with the footwork, with the finishing skill, with the shooters around him, like Owen Freeman to the moon. He's not what Luka Garza is, size-wise, or like Luka Garza was a freak. Luka Garza, I still think should be getting minutes in the NBA. It's a conversation for another day. But Owen Freeman, that's a high bar to reach, but there's no reason he can't be, as Nick mentioned, one of the best bigs in the league, right?
Oh yeah, hard agree there. Buy stock now, man. You said Owen Freeman to the moon,
Yeah.
like Dogecoin, baby. Buy stock now.
Awesome. Well, it seems like there's some optimism in this call on Iowa. Any final predictions for you guys on where this team finishes? Do they finally make that Sweet 16?
Man, a lot of the conversation, and we are in football season right now as we record this, and talk about the Iowa offense, Tim Lester, Cade McNamara. I don't know if you guys are following along with college football as much.
Guys, it's September.
Okay. And what I've said throughout the summer is I'll believe it when I see it. And as much optimism as I have and excitement that I have around the basketball team at Iowa, this squad and the youth and some of the things that they put together this offseason through the portal and through recruiting, man, Fran's been around a long time and he hasn't gotten there yet. So I'll believe it when I see it.
Fair enough. Nick?
I'm going bold, man. They make the Sweet 16 this year, and I have in my Big Ten rankings, I have them 6th right now. So
okay,
I am high on the Hawkeyes this season. I'm buying the stock, I'm buying the hype, and Fran breaks through finally, gets to the Sweet 16. That's my prediction.
Here's my thing. Like you mentioned it, Eliot, like about just with the guys they brought in and the Leafs are expecting that defense is more of a focus than it has ever appeared to be, at least. There are two ends of the basketball court. At the end of the day, you can only be so good when you're outside the top 100 in KenPom defense. But we're not asking for you to become Virginia, right? It's like just be in the top 75. Just be in the top 75 if you have a top 10 offense and you're golden. Like, because, whether it's just shooting regression of other teams or just kind of turning up the defensive juice, which like I felt like the Keegan Murray team that got hot and won the Big Ten tournament did. Like it's possible. Like these guys, even if they're offensive minded guys, he's bringing in, they've been playing defense their whole lives too. And at the end of the day, it's what leads to winning. And I don't mean to be simple minded here, but I guess my point is just crack that top 75 defensively, which shouldn't be the toughest thing ever, considering the personnel, considering that's what the team should be focusing on, because the scoring is going to be there, with the talent and with the shooting ability. So I like this team a lot too, but I'm kind of in the boat of I'll believe it when I see it. Show me that you can defend it and grind out some tougher Big Ten games on the road and win in the 70s, not the 80s, and
right.
So that's what I'm looking for. But really appreciate your time today, Eliot. You were awesome and super insightful. So appreciate you. Good luck with everything rest of football season, and we'll be in touch during college hoop season.
Awesome. Sounds good, guys. Thanks so much.
Yep, thanks.